GiJoe, A Real American Hero, was a military fantasy line that went from 1982 to 1984. And will probably go down in history as one of the greatest toy lines ever made. And probably no other toy line was as influential to world building, for character selection, vehicles, accessories, but most importantly, the playsets. So on this episode, we're gonna look at 10 of the best GiJoe Real American Hero playsets ever made. Happy Yo-Jo June to everyone, or most importantly, GiJoe fans. Me and my brother were huge GiJoe fans back in the day. He was born in 85, I was born in 87, and we collected probably all the way up until the end of the line, and then later, the aforementioned in my last video, GiJoe Extreme. So we've always had this profound love for GiJoe. I will say my fandom kind of dropped off after that, either other toy lines or getting older, but GiJoe Classified has definitely restored my love of the brand, and it also makes me think of all those great GiJoe toys that we had back in the day. Now you know I love playsets, and since it's June, I figure what better time to talk about some of the greatest playsets ever made, and they all came from one line, GiJoe, A Real American Hero. So sit back, relax, as we go through 10 of the best GiJoe playsets. At number 10, we have 1985's Outpost Defender. This was a compact defense bunker fortified with sandbag walls, a protective corrugated roof, and it had dual mounting machine guns. This thing was so small, and if you had multiple of these, you could just put them anywhere in your toy room, set up kind of this perimeter around your heroes, and very reminiscent of collecting Little Green Army Men or those big battle sets where they'd come with things like this. This is where I think GiJoe Classified needs to pick up their game. I know we got that small porta potty looking thing a couple years ago. I didn't pick it up, but Outpost Defender is one that I would definitely like to see made into 6-inch form, or heck, I can probably even make it myself. But still, I think there's charm in these miniature type accessory play sets, so even if you only had one or multiple, you can still have fun world building and building out your battlefield. Number 9 goes to 1992's Headquarters. This one probably should have been higher up on the list, but one, it has a pretty bland name. It's just simply called Headquarters. But this was the last true GiJoe Real American Hero playset made. It's over 30 inches wide. You can accommodate so many different figures on this. It had built-in spring-loaded missile launchers, had electronic sound effects, so this thing was awesome. I think it did look really cool, especially if you had some of the older command centers. You could put this next to it and build this big fortress, but I think for being one of the last mainline GiJoe playsets, it is pretty cool, and I don't think it gets enough recognition. Next, we have 1984's Battle Station Watchtower. This was a high clearance industrial style guard tower, and it provided Joes with a high vantage point. It came equipped with a top mounted heavy cannon, some floodlights, a ladder, and a flag that you could put on top. These things are so cool. Again, they had these accessory play sets back then where, you know, they were probably at the low to medium price point, so your parents weren't breaking the bank. And these are just so much fun. Again, I'm gonna say it that this would be awesome in 6-inch classified series, I think, over that weird bunker that they created. Give us more of these. There's plenty of creators making them with 3D printers or third party, so there's really cool creators doing it, but it would be nice to have an official Hasbro one. At number 7, we have 1990's General. Now, this is going to fall into the category of vehicle slash playset because it also did roll around and move like a vehicle. But this was so big, more than likely, kids were probably just having this stationary and all the action was happening around it. But this thing was massive. It was a 12-wheeled rolling fortress that expanded into multi-levels, had this cool platform on top that you can park the Locust helicopter that it came with, really awesome. But for me, the main selling point of this playset was the absolute giant cannon that it came with that always looked so cool. So never had the General, but it looked massive. I do remember friends having it and always loved going over their house to play with it. At number 6, we have 1985's Transportable Tactical Battle Platform. Now, I remember every time this was being advertised, it would always be shown in water. However, this thing didn't float, but it did look cool that if you wanted to have it dropped off in the middle of the ocean or your carpet, that you can have a place there while all these water vehicles from Cobra were attacking. So it was this tactical fortress, and it was on these red legs, and it was just so cool because it had the helipad, it had a crane, which was super awesome, missile launchers, a boarding ramp so you can bring your smaller ships on. And this thing was so much fun. So if you did have like one of those little wading pools in your yard, you could probably put it in there and create some water battles. But I always just thought it was super awesome. At number 5, we have 1987's Defiant Space Vehicle Launch Complex. This is probably just one of the greatest playsets ever made from a technical standpoint. It looked like a NASA spaceship. It opened up to this big complex, which was super awesome. Why it's not lower on the list or higher on the list is that it just never felt like something you would battle in. Although I'm sure you can use your imagination and create some awesome battles. But to that, this thing was still pretty cool. It's definitely up there in one of the largest playsets ever made. It could be folded up to this giant crawler that could be rolled around, and then when you opened it up, it revealed this giant space station. So it was really cool. It had the booster ship and the space shuttle, and this was the year I was born. I would have loved to get my hands on this, but unfortunately never did. And actually, I've never seen this one in person, so I would love to. It looks so cool, and I bet any kid that had it loved this thing. At number 4, we have 1985's USS Flagg. Now this is the largest playset ever made, and it's probably the crown jewel of any G.I. Joe Real American Hero collector. I didn't know anyone that had this thing, so it was always kind of that unicorn of collecting, but this thing was massive. It was 7 feet long. You can park your Sky Strikers on there and all these different vehicles. It had a microphone so you can kind of yell into it from the top tower. Super cool. And I love seeing how most modern collectors will display this. They'll actually build a table for it so they can make all these extra layers. Super awesome. But for me, why it's not higher on the list, it's kind of one of those things where, you know, if a tree falls in the woods, does it really make a noise? If this was really the greatest playset but no one had it, was it really that fun? Yeah, it was really that fun, and you could tell by looking at it. It's just sour grapes that I never had one, but to any collector that has this, I know they probably cherish it. It's super awesome and a super awesome piece of toy history. Number 3 on the list goes to 1987's Mobile Command Center. And of all the playsets on the list, this is actually the only one that I had, and it was an absolute beast. It was a heavily armored tank. It had all these giant treads that unfolds into a 3-story tactical headquarters, and it had all these different scenes, a repair garage, a briefing center, top tier weapon placements. It was just so cool, and we had so much fun with this. I remember we had it, my mom donated it, and then my older cousin was getting rid of it, and then we got it, so we got another one, and then my mom donated that one. So we had this in our hands twice, and we got rid of it. So definitely hurts, definitely stings, but as the only G.I. Joe playset on this list that I had, I have great memories of that one. At number 2 on the list, we have 1986's Cobra Terradrome. This was the ultimate villain headquarters. It was this circular base. You can enter through all different angles. You can fit a ton of figures on here, and it was just awesome. I'd say probably the definitive playset for Cobra. You had all these different maintenance bays, jail cells where you can capture your Joes and throw them in there, central launch silo for the Firebat jet. This thing was so cool, and I actually did get to see this one in person. Super impressive. Never had it in my collection, but man, this was a super cool one. My honorable mention goes to another vehicle slash playset, and that goes to 1989's Thunderclap.
You want to see the thunderclap?
This was a large multi-piece vehicle set, and it was a mobile artillery unit that splits apart to deploy this giant long-range cannon. And this thing was super impressive. When you took the vehicle pieces off and you just wanted to use that cannon, you could put the legs down. And this is where I would consider it more of a playset, because all the action would happen around this piece. So always looked super cool. 1989, I probably should have had this in my collection, but we didn't. Maybe we did and I just don't remember. But because it is probably more of a vehicle, that's why I didn't make it onto the proper list, but I still wanted to mention the Thunderclap. Number 1 goes to 1983's Command Center Headquarters. While I am partial to the Mobile Command Center, which is the one that I had, I have to respect what came before. And I think this Command Center Headquarters, even more than the USS Flagg, is one of the most definitive G.I. Joe playsets just because more kids had it, more kids have memories playing with it, and I think this one was just pure G.I. Joe. Not overly complicated. It was a fortress base. You can park your vamp in there, tank, which would be super cool, a jail cell. But looking back at some of these other G.I. Joe playsets, I would definitely have the command center in the middle, and I would put some of those other corresponding playsets surrounding it. So that would definitely be the centerpiece. And again, I think this is the definitive G.I. Joe playset, even more so than the flag. All right, folks, that does it with my list of top 10 best G.I. Joe action figure playsets. The Real American Hero still, I think, is one of the best lines ever made, and I am so happy that G.I. Joe Classified is continuing. Are you a Real American Hero collector? Do you collect Classified? Do you collect both? Let me know down in the comments, but also let me know which playsets you would have put on this list or what you would have put higher. And before you tell me that any of these playsets are vehicles, I'm just gonna stop you and say they're both. Two things can be true at the same time. But that's all I got for this one, folks, so I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And until the next episode, we'll catch you next time.